I stood at the pharmacy counter, my debit card in hand. The cashier swiped it once. Declined. She tried again. Declined. "I'm sorry, ma'am," she said gently. "Do you have another form of payment?" I looked down at the prescription bottle. Lisinopril. For my blood pressure. $47.82. I had exactly $31.16 in my account. I knew because I'd checked it 3 times that morning. Can I come back tomorrow?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. Behind me, someone coughed impatiently. My hands trembled as I slid the prescription back across the counter. I was 62 years old, and I couldn't afford my own blood pressure medication. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd spent 15 years as a nurse before David convinced me to quit. "We don't need the money," he'd said. "I want you home with Emily." This wasn't always my life. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table in my studio apartment. Studio. A kind word for a room with a kitchenette and a bathroom so small I had to step into the shower to close the door. The rent was $875 a month. My divorce settlement gave me $28,000 total. After buying my used Toyota and paying my lawyer, I had $11,400 left. At this rate, I had maybe 4 months before I was completely broke. My phone rang. Emily's number. "Hey, honey." "Mom, I got my first paycheck." Emily had graduated from nursing school 6 months ago, just finished her orientation at Seattle General. My baby girl was a nurse now, following in my footsteps, though I'd never gotten to tell her what that path really looked like. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. I want to send you some money. I know Dad didn't give you much in the settlement." My throat tightened. "Absolutely not. You have student loans. You keep every penny." "Mom, Emily, I'm fine. Really." I was not fine. The divorce had been final for 7 months. 7 months of watching my savings evaporate. 7 months of learning that $28,000 doesn't go far when you're starting from nothing at 62. After we hung up, I stared at the wall. I'd been a nurse, a good nurse. I'd worked in pediatrics at County General for 15 years before Emily was born. I'd loved it. The kids, the families, the feeling of making a difference. But David had wanted me home. "Emily needs her mother," he'd said, "not daycare workers." And I'd agreed. Because that's what wives did. That's what mothers did. I'd given up my career, my income, my identity. For 28 years, I'd been David's wife, Emily's mother. Nothing else. David controlled everything. Every credit card was in his name. The house, his name. The cars, his name. He gave me $60 a week for groceries and personal items. "Budget better," he'd say when I needed more. Other wives manage. I'd managed. I'd clipped coupons, bought generic, made everything from scratch. I'd stretched that $60 so far it should have snapped. And when I'd suggested going back to work, even part-time, he'd shut it down immediately. "Your nursing license is expired. You'd have to recertify. It would cost thousands. We don't need the money anyway." We didn't need the money. He didn't need me to have money. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister, Karen. "Coffee tomorrow? I'm buying." I should have felt grateful. Instead, I felt that familiar burn of shame. Poor Linda, 62 years old and broke, can't even buy her own coffee. That night, I dreamed of the day David told me he was leaving. It had been 9 months ago, but the memory was sharp as a scalpel. We'd been in the living room. I'd been folding laundry. His expensive dress shirts that I hand-washed because the dry cleaning bill was too high. "I'm leaving you," he'd said. No preamble, no warning. I'd stared at him, a shirt half folded in my hands. "What?" I filed for divorce. "I've met someone else, Michelle. She's different from you." "Different? How?" "She's successful, a pharmaceutical rep. She has her own career, her own money. She doesn't need me to take care of her." The words had landed like punches. "I needed you to take care of me because you made me quit my job. You said, 'That was your choice, Linda.' I never forced you." But he had. With every dismissal of my desire to work, with every "we don't need your money," with every year that passed until going back seemed impossible. "What about Emily?" I'd asked. "Emily's 25. She's grown. She doesn't need you hovering." He'd already packed. He'd already rented an apartment. He'd already consulted lawyers. He'd been planning this for months while I washed his shirts and clipped coupons. At the divorce proceedings, I finally met Michelle. She was there, waiting outside the courtroom, tall, confident, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly grocery allowance for a year. She had a career. She had money. She didn't need David's money. That's what he wanted. Not a partner, not someone to share with, but someone who didn't need him. After 28 years of making me need him, my lawyer fought for alimony, but David's attorney argued I was capable of working. The judge agreed. Miss Morrison, you're 62, not 82. You have nursing experience. You can recertify. With what money? I'd wanted to scream. With what time? My license had been expired for 27 years. No alimony. Just a one-time settlement. $28,000 to rebuild my life. I woke at 4:17 a.m., my pillow damp. The apartment was dark and quiet. Too quiet. In the silence, something shifted inside me. A small voice that I'd silenced for 28 years finally spoke. I don't want to spend my last good years counting pennies. The next morning, I met Karen at the coffee shop. She was 5 years younger, divorced 8 years ago, now running a successful home organizing business. You look exhausted, she said. I am. Tired of being poor, tired of being 62 and feeling helpless, tired of not being able to afford my own medication. Karen stirred her latte. Linda, you're not helpless. You've just been convinced you are. I can't recertify as a nurse. It would cost thousands. I'd have to take classes, pass exams. So don't be a nurse. Use what you know differently. She pulled out her phone and showed me websites. Women who'd started home health care agencies. Not nursing care, but companion care. Helping elderly people with daily tasks. Medication reminders. Meal prep. Transportation to appointments. This woman started at 64, Karen said, pointing to a testimonial. She makes $5,000 a month now. $5,000. I couldn't even imagine it. I can't do that, I said automatically. Why not? Linda, you were a pediatric nurse. You know how to care for people. You know medication schedules, dietary restrictions, mobility issues. You just need to pivot from kids to elderly. The idea planted itself. What if all those years of medical knowledge weren't wasted? What if caregiving was still caregiving, regardless of age? That afternoon, I went to the library. I researched home health care agencies, companion care, senior services. I learned about licensing requirements. In my state, you didn't need a nursing license to provide non-medical care. You needed a business license, liability insurance, and background checks. I did the math. Business license, $150. Basic liability insurance, $80. Month. Background check, $45. I could scrape together $300 from my dwindling savings. My first client came from Karen. Her neighbor's mother, Mrs. Patterson, 84, needed someone 4 hours a day. Light housekeeping, meal prep, medication reminders, companionship, $20 an hour. I stood at Mrs. Patterson's door, my heart pounding. What was I doing? I was 62. I hadn't worked in 28 years. What if I failed? But then Mrs. Patterson opened the door. Frail, a little confused, very lonely. And suddenly I wasn't 62 and scared. I was Nurse Linda again. I knew exactly what to do. Hello, Mrs. Patterson. I'm Linda. I'm here to help make your day a little easier. That first day, I earned $80. I came home and cried. Not from sadness, but from something I hadn't felt in 28 years. Pride. I'd earned that money with my own skills, my own hands, my own knowledge. I called my business Silver Care Solutions. I made flyers at the library. I posted in senior center newsletters. I joined online caregiver groups. Slowly, painfully, I built a client base. Mrs. Patterson told her friends. Her friends told their families. Within 3 months, I had 6 regular clients. I was working 30 hours a week, earning $600. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I learned as I went. I took a free online course in Alzheimer's care. I watched YouTube videos on safe transfer techniques. I read everything I could about senior nutrition, fall prevention, medication management. At 6 months, I hired my first employee. Another woman, Sarah, 58, whose husband had left her. She needed work. She needed purpose. We understood each other. At 8 months, I had 12 clients and 3 employees. I wasn't rich, but I wasn't counting pennies anymore. I could buy my medication. I could afford decent groceries. I could breathe. Emily noticed. "Mom, you sound different, happier." "I am, sweetheart. I'm working again." "Working? Doing what?" I told her about Silver Care Solutions, about Mrs. Patterson and the others, about finding myself again in the work I'd loved. "Mom, I'm so proud of you." Those words. I'd waited 28 years to hear them, not as David's wife, as myself. At 1 year, I had a waiting list. Families were calling me because they'd heard I actually cared, that I had medical knowledge, that I treated their parents with dignity. I hired a scheduler. I raised my rates to $25 an hour. I got commercial liability insurance. I created employee handbooks. I learned about payroll taxes and business expenses. I wasn't just surviving, I was building something. At 18 months, I moved out of the studio into a real 1-bedroom apartment. It had a full kitchen, a bedroom with a door, windows that let in actual sunlight. The rent was $1,100, but I could afford it now. Emily visited for Thanksgiving. She walked into my apartment and hugged me. "This is so nice, Mom. You did this, all by yourself." Yes, I did. But the biggest moment came on a Tuesday morning, 2 years after David had left. My phone rang. Unknown number. Silver Care Solutions. "This is Linda." "Linda?" A pause. "It's David." I froze. 2 years. 2 years of silence. Why was he calling? "David, I need to ask you something." His voice sounded strained. "It's about my mother." His mother, Dorothy. She was 87 now, living alone in Arizona. I'd always liked Dorothy, though David had limited our contact. "She's too demanding," he'd say. "What about her?" "She fell, broke her hip. She's recovered from surgery, but she can't live alone anymore. She refuses to go to a nursing home. She wants to stay in her house, but she needs help. Daily help." I waited. "I've been calling agencies in Phoenix. They're either fully booked or they're not good, Linda. One sent someone who sat on her phone all day, another stole from her. I need someone trustworthy, someone with medical knowledge, someone who will actually care." He paused. "Karen mentioned you started a home care business. Is that true?" My heart pounded. "Yes. Could you take her as a client?" "I'll pay whatever you charge. I just need to know she's safe." This was it, the moment I'd imagined. David, needing me. David, coming back. 2 years ago, I would have cried. I would have felt vindicated. I might have even felt tempted to gloat. But now, I felt something different. I felt professional. "David, I run a small operation here in Washington. Your mother is in Arizona. I don't have anyone there. Could you refer someone? Someone you trust?" I could have said no. I could have hung up. But Dorothy had been kind to me. And this was business. "Let me make some calls. I have connections through the home care networks. Give me her address and care needs." We talked for 20 minutes. He gave me details. Dorothy's mobility issues, her medications, her preferences. I took notes, professional and distant. "Thank you, Linda. I didn't know who else to call. I'll email you by tomorrow with options." That evening, I reached out to my network. I joined national caregiver forums. I knew people. Within 24 hours, I had 3 excellent agencies in Phoenix. I'd vetted them personally. I'd talked to their owners. I'd checked their reviews. I sent David a detailed email. Agency names, contact information, my personal assessment of each, suggested questions to ask. His response came an hour later. "Thank you. This is incredibly helpful. Can we talk?" I didn't respond immediately. Could we talk? About what? About how he'd left me with nothing? About Michelle? About 28 years of control? The next day, he called again. "Linda, I wanted to thank you in person. Can I buy you coffee?" Part of me wanted to say no. Part of me was curious. "Fine. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., the Starbucks on 5th. I walked into that Starbucks in my professional clothes. Slacks, A nice blouse, a blazer, my Silver Care Solutions business cards in my purse, my hair styled, my head high. David was already there. He stood when he saw me. He looked older, tired. The confidence I remembered was gone. "Linda, you look good. Really good." "Thank you." I sat down. Professional, polite, distant. "I contacted the agency you recommended, Valley Senior Care. They're sending someone next week." I spoke to the owner. She was wonderful. She said you'd given her a glowing endorsement. "Dorothy deserves good care." "She does." He stirred his coffee. "Michelle and I were going to move her in with us, but Michelle and I aren't together anymore." "I didn't ask. I didn't need to know." He continued anyway. "She left 6 months ago. Said I was too controlling, that I needed to manage everything, everyone, that she felt suffocated." He laughed bitterly. The irony wasn't lost on me. Controlling, the same thing he'd done to me. And Michelle, the independent woman who didn't need his money, had left him for the exact same reason he'd left me. "I'm sorry it didn't work out," I said. And I meant it. Not because I wanted him back, but because I'd learned that bitterness only poisoned yourself. "Are you?" He looked at me. "You have every right to hate me." "I don't hate you, David." I did, for a while. But hate takes too much energy. I needed that energy to rebuild my life. And you did. Karen told me about your business. 12 employees now? That's incredible. 15, actually. I just hired 3 more. Linda, I need to say this. What I did to you was wrong. The way I controlled the money, convinced you that you couldn't work, made you dependent. That wasn't love. That was control. And I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. I looked at him. 2 years ago, this apology would have meant everything. I would have cried. I might have forgiven him on the spot. Now, I just felt peaceful. "I appreciate you saying that, David. I do, but I've already forgiven you. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. Can we stay in touch? Maybe have coffee sometimes?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. "No, David, I don't think so. You were part of my old life. The life where I didn't know who I was. I like who I am now. And keeping you in my life would just remind me of who I was then." He nodded slowly. "I understand. But if you ever need anything, I won't. But thank you." I stood up, extended my hand. "Professional. Good luck with Dorothy's care. Valley Senior Care is excellent. She'll be in good hands." He shook my hand. His grip was weak, uncertain. I walked out of that Starbucks and didn't look back. That evening, I taught my monthly workshop. I'd started it a year ago. Second Act Careers. It's never too late. 12 women attended, ages ranging from 48 to 71. Some divorced, some widowed, all scared, all determined. "Today," I said, "I want to tell you about a woman who spent 28 years believing she was nothing without her husband. A woman who couldn't buy her own blood pressure medication at 62. A woman who thought it was too late to start over." I told them my story. Not to brag, not for sympathy, but to show them it was possible. "You have skills you don't recognize," I told them. "Every skill you use to manage a household, raise children, support a partner, those are transferable. Budgeting? That's financial management. Scheduling family activities? That's project coordination. Caring for kids or elderly parents? That's healthcare experience." After class, a woman named Patricia approached me. She was 67, recently divorced after 40 years. "Do you really think I can do this?" Her voice shook. "Learn something new at my age?" I took her hands. "Patricia, I started at 62 with $11,400 and an expired nursing license. If I can do it, you can do it." "What did you do before you got married?" "I was a teacher, elementary school, but I haven't taught in 42 years. So don't be a teacher. Use what you learned. You know how to break down complex information. You know how to be patient. You know how to manage chaos. Those skills are valuable. Maybe you tutor. Maybe you create educational content online. Maybe you train other teachers. The what doesn't matter. What matters is that you know you can." Tears filled her eyes. "Thank you." That night, I sat in my apartment, my good apartment, with space and light and furniture I'd chosen. I opened my laptop and looked at my bank account. I had more money than I'd ever had in my life. Not wealthy, not rich, but secure. And every dollar I'd earned myself. My phone buzzed. Emily. Hey, Mom. Quick question. I'm thinking about buying a condo. Can I pick your brain about financing? You're so good with money now. I smiled. Me, good with money. The woman who'd lived on $60 a week. The woman who'd had to choose between bread and eggs. Of course, sweetheart. Let's talk tomorrow. I'll walk you through the numbers. After we hung up, I thought about David's apology. About his admission that what he'd done was control, not love. He was right. Love doesn't make you small. Love doesn't take away your choices. Love doesn't convince you that you're nothing without it. Real love, I'd learned, starts with loving yourself, with knowing your worth, with understanding that you're complete on your own. I walked to the bathroom and looked in the mirror. I saw a woman I recognized, not David's wife, not the scared woman who couldn't afford medication, not the desperate woman counting pennies. Just Linda, a business owner, a workshop teacher, a daughter, a mother, a sister, a woman who'd learned that 62 wasn't too late, that nothing could become something if you worked for it, that you didn't need anyone's permission to be yourself. And that woman, she was more than enough. I smiled at my reflection, turned off the light, and went to bed. Tomorrow, I had 3 new client consultations, a staff meeting, a workshop to prepare, a life to live. My life. Finally, gloriously, completely mine.